Welcome to Fight News Now. My name is John Pollock with a packed show for you today as we hear exclusive comments from Tough Nations winner Chad Laprise, Ultimate Fighter original Josh Koscheck, and UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock will also be by. As always, John Ramdian and Robin Black are here for 3 rounds. The ship gets tapped out, and so much more, so let's get started with this week's Newsmakers. On Tuesday afternoon, the UFC held a press conference in Mexico announcing that heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez and Fabricio Werdum will serve as head coaches on Tough Latin America, which begins filming in May. It was also announced that UFC 180 will take place November the 15th in Mexico City, with Velasquez versus Werdum for the title and the finals of the inaugural Tough Latin America season.
This season of The Ultimate Fighter will air here and in Latin America, and we will bring the first live event to Mexico. The week of November 15th, it will be the finale of The Ultimate Fighter, and the 2 coaches, Cain Velasquez and Fabricio Werdum, will fight in the main event. We'll have the finale of The Ultimate Fighter, and I don't know the rest of the card yet. Obviously, you know, it's so far away. As we get closer, we'll start to build the card. But you know I want to come into Mexico with a bang, so we're going to bring some good fights down here, I promise you.
The MGM Grand Garden Arena will play host to one of the biggest fights of 2014 this Saturday night as Floyd Mayweather Jr. will step back into the ring opposite 35-3 Marcos Maidana for the WBC welterweight title being put up for grabs. This will be Mayweather's first fight of 2014 and third since coming over to Showtime, and we now hear more from the undefeated 37-year-old.
Floyd Mayweather is not scared of no opponent. I don't duck or dodge nobody, but you know, like I said before, I earn my stripes, so I can pick and choose who I want to, pick and choose. I fight who I want to fight. Nobody is forced to watch me.
Jab to the body. Look at this display by Floyd Mayweather.
Well, this guy is relentless. You know, this guy, Maidana, he's very, very relentless.
He swarms Broner along the ropes.
A lot of times people want to say, why did I choose Maidana over Khan? I mean, look at his last 4 victories. I don't think that, you know, I got to this level by not being able to fight. You know, I got to this level by being able to fight.
What a sublime right uppercut up the middle by Mayweather.
The less you get hit, the longer you last in the sport of boxing. So I'm gonna go out there and it's gonna be a lot of toe-to-toe battle. But of course, I got to be a smart fighter because the less you get hit, the longer you last.
From one dominant champion to another, we now check in with reigning UFC light heavyweight king Jon Jones, who defended his title for the 7th time this past Saturday at UFC 172 in Baltimore with a 5-round shutout against Glover Teixeira. The evening also saw Anthony Johnson emerge as a force in the 205-pound weight class, and Jones shared his thoughts on Rumble's big win over Phil Davis.
I respect Anthony Johnson a ton. I always have. He's going to be great for the light heavyweight division, and you know, the top 10 guys. I think it's going to be awesome. One thing I do want to see is more top 10 guys fighting each other. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the good guys aren't fighting guys who are that good, and it's aggravating. I have no plans on fighting him anytime soon. You know, I'm just getting ready to celebrate.
I have a ton of respect for him. He's the champ, but also know I got to put in the work and the effort to get to his level. You know, to be a real contender. And just because I had this win tonight doesn't make me, in my opinion, a contender. So I'm just taking it one fight at a time.
Now you sound like Phil. You're just happy being the top guy, but you gotta want to be the best. Like Dana said, Phil's happy being top 4.
Jones now holds the record for most light heavyweight title defenses, surpassing Tito Ortiz, but Ortiz took issue with this graphic that the UFC put together listing Jones with the most light heavyweight wins in the UFC, stating that he had 15 while Chuck Liddell had 16 in the weight class, which was called the middleweight division prior to May of 2001. From Tito Ortiz, we now move on to another Hall of Famer, and Ken Shamrock, who, like Ortiz, has been very outspoken regarding UFC President Dana White, and he sat down with our own John Ramdian to discuss his place in the promotion's history and the problems he has had along the way.
My concern is that something that I helped build will sooner or later will be gone, as I don't think there's going to be the history there. And we see it today already trying to be cut out. You know, you got pre-Zuffa and, you know, Zuffa. And to me, it's a shame because with the UFC, they're cutting that history out. And as we go more down the road, it's gonna hurt when those hard times come and you try to show history and you're cutting out half of it because you have a problem with some of the fighters. That's wrong.
The last time we saw UFC welterweight Josh Koscheck, he was on the wrong end of a knockout at the hands of Tyrone Woodley at UFC 167 in November. The Ultimate Fighter 1 alumni was here in Toronto at our Fight Network studios, and I spoke with Koscheck, a man who has had 23 of his 25 pro fights inside of the UFC.
What's the relationship like between you and Javier Mendez today? Has anything been fixed in terms of that situation? Do you guys ever speak since the split?
No, we haven't. We've been in the same facility before, but there's no contact. And it is what it is. Hey, he has his thing, his agenda, and it's just not the same as mine. I'm better off, mentally, physically, everything without being at AK in San Jose. Not everybody's going to get along. Not everybody's going to have the same values, as far as working hard and working towards a common goal. And I felt like that they didn't have that value that I had, and so I just, decided to do my own thing, and it's much better. I'm in a much better place. My gyms are way better now, with the new branding and new names, and it's cooler, because I got to go out and start my own thing and do my own thing and see it succeed. So, and not riding the coattails of a name that a bunch of other people built.
Josh Koscheck battled through the tough house for a contract back in 2005, and 9 years later, Chad Laprise realized that quest by capturing a UFC contract at the Tough Nations finale with his decision win over Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Laprise is the latest product of the Adrenaline Training Center out of London, Ontario, to step into the UFC, and we spoke with Laprise about the next stage of his fighting career.
I was super happy when they announced that I was going to make the show. I honestly thought that I wouldn't make it. I knew that I had the fighting ability to be there, but I thought personality-wise, I wasn't one of the crazy guys like a Junie Browning or something like that with the personality. So I really didn't think that they were going to pick me. And when they told me that, they gave me the call, I knew right away that this was my shot, and I definitely had to make the best of it. I was exactly how I am in everyday life, and I knew that going in, and things worked out well for me. If you guys have seen any of my fights, they're usually very exciting. I come out there obviously with mainly a stand-up game plan, and I always come in to put on a show for the fans, and I'm sure that'll never be in a boring fight. Lightweight is definitely my natural weight class. I did 170 on the show because that was the opportunity. It worked out perfect for me for not having to cut as much weight. But so people have been asking me, who do you want to fight? Who do you want to fight next? I'm in no position to call people out to ask for fights. I'm just blessed to be in the UFC, and whoever they tell me to fight is who I'm gonna fight next, and I'm gonna keep racking up those wins, and hopefully work my way to the title someday.
And finally, we check in with heavyweight Brendan Schaub, who hasn't fought since last September when he submitted Matt Mitrione at UFC 165 in Toronto. Schaub got the call that he will be coming back to Canada on June the 14th at UFC 174 to fight former UFC heavyweight champion Andrei Arlovski, who is back with the promotion for the first time since March of 2008.
People are going to be looking forward to this one. There's a reason they put us on there on short notice, so I'm excited for it. Man, a win, people are going to say, Arlovski's not ranked in the top 5. Listen, no one gives a flying shit about the rankings. Frank Mir, was he ranked number 10? He's lost how many in a row? 7 in a row? You got Mark Hunt, who's 9 and 8, ranked 6 or 7. You got Stefan Struve, who's been out for 2 years. He's like the Lance Armstrong of the heavyweight division. He's been out for 2 years. They still have him ranked. So as far as the rankings go, unless you're ranked number 1, no one gives a shit. No one cares. You ask anyone, you ask the other heavyweights, we don't care, man. So when it comes to Arlovski, I don't know what he's ranked. I don't care. It's not even something I look into. They can rank me whatever they want. So a big win over Arlovski puts me right up there. If I get a convincing win over Andrei Arlovski, that's 3 in a row. I think the longest streak in the UFC is 4 in a row. It's a tie between Kane and Velasquez. So let's go, man. Win over Arlovski, we're right there.
There you go. So a lesson for today, rankings really don't mean much in the UFC. I tend to agree. When we come back, John Ramdine and Robin Black, they're going to be looking backwards. They're going to be looking forwards to a ton of fights as 3 rounds is up when we continue on Fight News Now. We are back on Fight News Now, and it's time to welcome in John Ramdian and Robin Black as they break down and look ahead to the fights that should be on your radar. And guys, a non-UFC weekend, that just means Bellator, ONE FC, Cage Warriors, and Glory on the weekend.
Oh, trust me, we're going to be busy consuming all of the mixed martial arts from around the globe. But coming up, the UFC has a very busy May. They have a couple of shows. There is kind of title implications in the early part of May as well as the latter part of May. First, we got to talk about what's going down May 10th, UFC Fight Night. The main event, a fantastic welterweight tilt between Matt Brown and Erick Silva. Matt Brown surging right now, holds some big victories over some notable guys in the 170-pound division, Jordan Meehan, Mike Pyle, and Mike Swick. But we all believe that Erick Silva, very, very talented, but sometimes can leave himself exposed, and you do not want to leave your face exposed when you're facing Matt Brown because he can turn the lights right out.
Yeah, talking about title implications, they had Matt Brown going up against Carlos Condit. Yep. That was kind of the plan until Matt Brown injured his whatever he injured. You train, when you're a guy like Matt Brown and you're training the way he trains, very rugged, very aggressive, very medicine ball in the forest, running up a hill kind of style, you're going to injure something. So now he's got to go through Erick Silva, who's a big challenge, a great striker, really good on the ground. I don't think Silva wants to play on the feet with Matt Brown. He better take this to the ground.
Erick Silva, we saw him get stopped by Dong Young Kim. He was able to rebound, stopping Takanori Sato in less than a minute. But I think we saw his best performance against John Fitch in one of the in the fight of the night. Is it, again, as simple as take Matt Brown down to the ground, because I believe he has 9 submission losses on his resume. I mean, it's going to be difficult because, as we saw with Glover Teixeira and John Jones and Anthony Rumble Johnson, they use their wrestling as a defensive tactic.
The biggest improvement in the technical areas of mixed martial arts, all of the improvements over the last 5 years have been takedown defense, getting back up, and all the things necessary to become a stand and bang style fighter, which Matt Brown is.
Yeah.
That's the moneymaker. That's where guys are getting bonuses. That's where guys are getting fans. And so it's started to shape the strategy. And as a result, in the gyms, the improvement in the defensive wrestling has got massive. Has Matt Brown improved that much since all of those submission losses in his past, or can he just use offense to kind of keep you backing up? We'll see. It's a good fight. It's an exciting fight. It's a fight that when you talk to, we said this earlier in the week, talk to coaches, talk to fighters, this is the fight they want to see.
Eric Koch fighting at 155 pounds for the second time in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, going to be taking on Darren Cruikshank. And again, a fight that I believe will deliver one of the candidates for Fight of the Night. And I know people are thinking that's reserved for Matt Brown and Erick Silva, but these guys are going to light it up.
Spectacular, yeah. Joe Silva and Sean Shelby, these are the busiest guys in the world, but they still love their job. And imagine it. These guys are 80-hour-a-week guys, but they're tinkering, putting together cool little fights. And you know, when Joe Silva was like, oh, he's moving up to 55? That's my area. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you put him up against Cruikshank? He's got that clean, crisp boxing, that beautiful, tight Muay Thai, and you go up against Cruikshank, a spinning, hooking, jumping, flipping freak show, and you got yourself a real cool fight. And you can just imagine that Joe Silva's like, you know, well, what happens? In tight, does Coke, you know, land that in tight hooks? On the outside, how does he deal with Cruikshank? The truth is, I love Darren Cruikshank, one of my very favorite fighters, but this favors Erick Koch because he can simulate that in the gym. He's got guys who can do what Cruikshank does. I don't know that Darren has guys that can simulate the tight, crisp, technical expertise of his opponent.
You look at the 125-pound division, we have Daryl Montague going to be taking on Kyoji Horiguchi, and right now the 125-pound class wide open. Of course, Demetrius Johnson ruling with an iron fist. But for any of the fighters competing at the flyweight limit, you'd imagine 1 or 2 impressive victories, and they could be finding themselves fighting for a title.
Absolutely. You come in and you make your debut at 125 and you win. You just kind of put your feet up and you're like, hey, man, I'm waiting for my title shot. That's how it's going to go. Same thing at heavyweight. You know, the biggest fighters and the smallest fighters right now, there's a smaller, you know, pool of talent to pull from. So 1 or 2 good wins in there, and boom, feet up.
Horiguchi moving down to 125 pounds, spent the majority of his career fighting at 135 pounds. His only loss coming to Ueda, who's going to be taking on Bibiano Fernandez live on Friday right here on FN. A fantastic bantamweight title tilt, but for Horiguchi, Daryl Montague, very talented guys. His only losses are to some of the top guys at 125 pounds, but for Horiguchi, 23 years of age. You talked about that wrestle boxing type style, and that's the style that he has. And you'd have to imagine that's what's successful in mixed martial arts.
Well, he's coming from that crazy B area, which is Kid Yamamoto territory. I got to train with Kid for a couple months, and the guy is just spectacular. But they come from sort of a limited technical background. So it's like explosive takedowns, nasty striking. All of the meat and potato is good, but do they understand the little technical details? That's what we're going to find out. But the guy looks fantastic at 125.
UFC 173 also goes down at the end of the month. Robbie Lawler and Jake Ellenberger, and you have to imagine Robbie Lawler stops Jake Ellenberger. He could find himself fighting for the title once again.
Which is crazy because it's 2 months after that war that he had with Johnny Hendricks. Certainly will be a fight to catch coming up. Thank you guys. To catch more with those two, I encourage you to catch 5 rounds every Monday night at 7 Eastern right here on Fight Network. We have more fight news now on the other side as we track down Krystof Soszynski on the shift and have another viral video ready to roll when we come back. Welcome back to Fight News Now, and your plans for the weekend just changed because we have 3 big live events coming at you starting Friday morning. Set your alarm clock for 7 a.m. Eastern as we present ONE FC 15 Rise of Heroes. The action continues Saturday afternoon with Cage Warriors 68 at 4 Eastern, and then it all leads into Glory 16 from Denver at 9 Eastern, featuring a 4-man heavyweight tournament as well as Pat Barry's debut with the promotion. But we now send things over to Priscilla Carapan with the shift.
This weekend, Spidey swings back onto the silver screen in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This action-packed sequel promises to deliver some shocking twists and turns, as well as a few members of the Sinister Six.
You know what it is I love about being Spider-Man? Everything.
In this one, he starts off being Spider-Man, and he's really good at being Spider-Man. He's a virtuoso at Spider-Man-ness. He's whipping through the air, he's flying towards us. We've really focused on trying to give the audience that feeling of what it's like to fly through the air.
He's owning the symbol more. I'm Spider-Man. It's just closer to the Spider-Man I think we all know and love. You set me up. No, I didn't set you up!
Like I said before, Spider-Man is really good at being Spider-Man. How are you gonna come up with a foe that's got enough chops to give him a run for his money? He's so selfish.
Stay with me, Max!
Electro is one of the most cinematic villains. He's really godlike. Let's go catch a spider.
You needed somebody who, on the one hand, could sort of break your heart.
I wish I was like him.
You know, the guy you bump into on the street, but you never pay attention to. The guy that everybody overlooks.
You're Spider-Man.
Yeah, I know. Costume gives it away, huh, Max?
How do you know my name?
Your badge. Oscorp.
Nobody knows my name. I'm a nobody.
Hey, lick that.
Get my eyes and ears out here.
Stay out there.
On the other hand, when everything goes terribly wrong, could embody this incredibly powerful force.
Face! That blue it just blew everybody's mind, you know, the way they captured it. And then with the lights hovering, it made it sort of devilishly angelic. You don't remember me? Once I got into that blue, even my voice changed. It was more, you know, I have no idea. I felt like, you know, because his vocal cords had been burned. You lied to me.
No, I'm trying to help you. Let me help you.
He misinterprets what Spider-Man is trying to do. And when Spider-Man still gets all the glory, that's when he says, I gotta be heard. And you're in my way, Spider-Man. You wanted to be the hero.
Need a hand?
Now you gotta pay the price.
The tone is very alive. It's crackling with life, and there's a lot of, it's a roller coaster, this second one. It's very big and poppy and alive.
It is a breathtaking story. Fun and powerful and action-packed and tragic.
Recently, Robin Black attended the red carpet event for the film Tapped Out. This MMA-based film features Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida, and former UFC light heavyweight Krystof Soszynski, who spoke to us about his first major movie role.
Now that Krystof Soszynski has hung up his gloves,
he switched his attention to acting, and he tells us about his on-set experiences.
I had a chance to work right alongside of Michael Biehn, and guy's been around forever. So when you get a chance to do that kind of stuff and watch how he acts, watch all the little subtle movements that he makes with his face, with his hands. I did another movie with William Forsythe not too long ago as well. So I got a chance to train. I got a chance to work with him side by side, just learning from these guys. It was all about just sitting back, taking a look how it's done, and kind of following their footsteps.
Even though Soszynski's a big, tough-looking dude, it's got to be intimidating carrying out the biggest acting role of your career. Here's what his fellow cast and crew said about his performance.
Krystof Soszynski in the film did very well. It was his first role where he got to break out of his shell and actually speak. Usually he's just kind of grunting and beating people up. But no, I'm proud of him. I got to meet him before the film and hang out with him. He's a really good guy. He's dedicated.
He played it so subtle, so well, and he's really scary. He comes off as menacing, and he's like the friendliest guy you've ever met.
When people think of Tap, they think of oh, this maybe B fight movie with all these UFC stars. That guy can act. He is a good actor, and I think he's going to have a career because he has the presence. And that's the thing is a lot of these people that try to go from athletes to acting, they don't always have the charisma, and that's something that Krystof has.
Just like in a fight, you got to believe, and I got to make you believe in this movie. So you'll tell me after the movie, and you'll let me know if it's believable or not. So I think it is. I think we've done a really good job putting the fight scenes together, the acting together as well. It was a lot of fun. You always have doubts. You never know, right? It's my first time real big acting scene and lines and all that stuff. But it actually turned out really good, man. I was very, very happy with the performance.
That's it for the Ship this week. Back over to you, John.
Thank you, Priscilla, and time is winding down on this week's show, but we still have time to squeeze this in. It's a little segment we call our viral video, and this is the kind of stupidity happening in the world as we speak. He was 31 years old. That brings Fight News Now to a close. I want to thank all of our guests, including Ken Shamrock, Chad Laprise, and Josh Koscheck. Don't miss all of our live fights this weekend on the network. I'm going to be chatting with another UFC Hall of Famer in Mark Coleman on the MMA Report, so catch that Thursday at FightNetwork.com. And on behalf of John Ramdine, Robin Black, Priscilla Carapan, and the Fight Network crew, I'm John Pollock. Enjoy the action this weekend, and we'll chat with you next week. He hit him with a beautiful front kick to the body there. He's just